G'day everyone, welcome back to the channel, and welcome back to another one of my ever-expanding catalogue of EV realist videos. In these videos I seek to put a more realistic perspective on the mad dash to electrification to contrast with the wildly optimistic and idealistic views that are currently being spruiked by our various governments. So if you like this kind of content, it would be great to have you as a subscriber. In this video we're going to strip away the mainstream media greenwashing of EVs and look at the real environmental and human cost of the planet's mad dash for electrification. As you're probably aware, the whole push for EVs is driven by net zero, the plan to eradicate CO2 emissions, which will stop the climate from warming, allegedly, but that's like a whole other story. The theory goes that electricity is clean, and therefore if we simply abandon all of our internal combustion engine cars and drive electric cars, we can achieve climate utopia. But this, like most environmental claims, is unfortunately far from the truth. The first problem is the amount of CO2 that's released during the manufacture of an EV. Recent studies from Volvo and Volkswagen both show a much larger carbon footprint from the production of EVs as compared to internal combustion engines, which is hardly surprising given the amount of rare earth elements in the batteries. There was a study back in 2020, which I'll link below, which claimed an EV had to be driven 50,000 miles before it broke even with an internal combustion engine car. Many in the green lobby have, however, tried to debunk this claim with various ad hominem attacks on the authors because it really strikes at the environmentalist heart of the EV crusade. But many similar studies subsequently have shown essentially the same result, albeit quibbling over the precise extent of the time required to break even. Looking at the manufacturing process of EV batteries, it's difficult not to conclude that there will be a vast carbon footprint from all the mining required. A report from 2020 linked below describes how up to 500,000 pounds or 226,000 kilograms of earth and rock is required to be shifted in order to produce the raw materials for just one single EV battery. Here's an extract from that report. Lithium brines typically contain less than 0.1% lithium, so that entails some 25,000 pounds of brines to get 25 pounds of pure lithium. Cobalt ore grades average about 0.1%, thus nearly 30,000 pounds of ore. Nickel ore grades average about 1%, thus about 6,000 pounds of ore. Graphite ore is typically 10%, thus about 1,000 pounds. Copper at about 0.6% in the ore, thus about 25,000 pounds of ore per battery. In total then, acquiring just these 5 elements to produce the 1,000 pound EV battery requires mining about 90,000 pounds of ore. To properly account for all of the earth moved though, which is relevant to the overall environmental footprint and mining machinery energy use, one needs to estimate the overburden or the materials first dug up to get to the ore. Depending on the ore type and location, overburden ranges from about 3 to 20 tons of earth removed to access each ton of ore. This means that accessing about 90,000 pounds of ore requires digging and moving between 200,000 and 1.5 million pounds of earth, a rough average of more than 500,000 pounds per battery. I mean, the double standards here are astonishing. The Greens usually hate mining and will oppose it at every turn, except apparently when it's for EV batteries, because that's somehow okay. Then when the car is on the road, much of the electricity is still generated by fossil fuels anyway. Sure, it shifts the burning of the fuel off the road and back up the line to the power station where it's, not apparent to the driver. But it's still there, and in Australia nearly 70% of electricity remains generated by fossil fuels. The benefits of EVs here in Australia is just a total myth. But even more shocking is the human cost of the demand for such enormous quantities of rare earth metals. An article from August 2023 linked below reveals the appalling details. The Democratic Republic of Congo has up to 70% of the world's accessible cobalt reserves. Most cobalt mining companies in Democratic Republic of Congo are Chinese, but there is also a Western-owned mining sector. African miners report that working conditions under the Chinese mines are much worse than in the Western mines. Western mining companies are subject to Western-style regulation of working conditions, but instances of bribery and human rights abuses have also occurred in these firms. One big problem in the Democratic Republic of Congo is artisanal mining by independent subsistence miners, not officially employed by the mining companies. These miners dig out rocks containing the precious metal by hand, crush and wash them, and sell the metal for pennies to international traders. Up to 20% of the Democratic Republic of Congo's cobalt is produced by artisanal mining. Chinese companies buy a lot of artisanal cobalt. Between 150,000 and 200,000 artisanal miners work cobalt deposits in the DRC, including 80,000 children, with more than 1 million others economically dependent on their work. Each miner earns between 75 cents and $3 a day. The average annual income in the DRC is only $800. More than 80% of the people live on less than $1.25 a day, the threshold for extreme poverty. Just check out this clip from a documentary link below that shows the absolutely brutal conditions that these, quotes, artisanal miners have to work in.
There are so many little tents all over this place. Under it, there are holes. They're told us some as deep as 100 meters. These young men go down to dig for minerals. You see these bags? They are minerals. This will be taken to the cobalt market to be sold to international buyers. These young men do this every day. So for them, it's a day job, but it's a very risky job. It's a very, very risky job because imagine going deep underground in darkness and just digging for something. This could collapse at any moment.
Huku njo kukata huku njo ashikuweka mu mansaka.
They work long hours with barely room to move.
So unless you live in Norway, where electricity is generated by hydro, and you won't have to drive the car for 50,000 miles to offset the carbon emissions from its manufacturer, think carefully about whether choosing an EV really is environmentally friendly or not. And if that doesn't convince you, maybe think about the poor miners of the Congo suffering dangerous working conditions and terrible respiratory diseases from digging the rare earth elements out with their bare hands, the same elements that will eventually end up in the battery of your environmentally friendly EV. So anyway, that's just about it for this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Drop a comment down below. Let me know what you think. If you've got any tips, you can hit me up on Instagram or by email. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye for now.